Hi everybody. So today I'm going to show you how to make my little snail. I am going to be using approximately 720 bands for the body. For the shell, about 302 bands. I'll be using 5 black bands for the eye and 32 white bands for the eye. I'll also be using 3 red bands for the mouth, and I'm going to be using just my hook and 15 C-clips. Now this is optional. I'll be using the 15 C-clips just to count my rounds, and you could use anything that you want, from a rubber band, a paper clip, a safety pin, a stitch marker, just to count where you're at. And I will be using some stuffing to fill. We'll only be filling to the neck area, the rest is flat. I'll also be using a pencil to help me to stuff the stuffing in. I'll be using a wire. This is optional. I'm just going to use this to make it posable so I can take a picture. You can use a 19 gauge beaded wire or anything that you have lying around. This is actually, I think, a 19 gauge drop ceiling wire that we used for our basement. That's it. I'm going to get started. For round 1 of the eye, we are going to be using our loom, and I'll be using Isalicious Designs technique. I'll be using the bottom part of our loom. So just turn your loom around, and we are going to do 5 single stitches on a magic ring. So take 1 band, the color of your choice for the eye, and wrap it around the bottom part of your loom 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. Now with your hook, we're just going to go right inside and grab a single band, and I'm going to just pull it through as if we're going to do a slip knot, grabbing both ends. Now take the band and pull it over. Bring it to the side and go for your second stitch, grabbing the band and bringing it through. So now you have 3 loops around your hook. These 2 loops you want to bring over and bring it to the side. Our third stitch, reach in with your hook and that band still on, and grab that single band and bring it through. So now you have 3 stitches, bring the 2 over, one at a time, 1 and 2, and bring it to the side. Reach in for our 4th stitch, bring it through, and bring the 2 bands over. Bring it to the side. Our last stitch, our 5th, bring it through and bring the 2 bands over. I'm going to use a C-clip as our stitch counter and remove off the loom. So now I'm just going to move the bands around so that they're nice and even, and you're going to see 5 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 1 on your hook is your 5th. Round 2 of the eye, what we're going to do is we are going to increase on every stitch. So that means we're going to add 2 rubber bands to every single stitch. So you're going to use 10 bands for this round. Because we're changing the color, what we're going to do with our first band is you're going to reach in this first stitch, you're going to grab 1 band and you're going to bring it through all 3 loops, and then we're going to do a slip knot. So put on your hook and bring it through. You're going to reach back in that same stitch and use another rubber band, bring it through, and put on your hook. So you have the 3 loops. Now you're just going to slide through. So you have 2 rubber bands on that 1 stitch. Now going to your second stitch, and you're going to take a single band and bring it through, put on your hook, and slide through. Go back in that same stitch with another rubber band and slide it through. Go to your next stitch, and you're going to do the same thing. Increase by using 2 bands. Go in the same stitch, So now we're going to bring our round to 10 stitches at the end. The next stitch, use 2 rubber bands, one at a time. Go back in the same stitch with another rubber band. Where your C-clip is, or your stitch marker, you're adding 2 rubber bands. Go back in. You can remove your stitch marker. I'll be using C-clips, so I'm just going to be referring from now on to the C-clip. So now you should have 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the one on your hook is your 10th. For round 3 of the eye, what we're going to do is on our first stitch, we're going to do a single stitch. On our second stitch, we're going to increase using 2 rubber bands. Then single, 2 rubber bands, increase. Single, increase, all the way around. So you end up with 15 stitches. On your last stitch, you're going to have 2 rubber bands. So going in your first stitch with 1 rubber band. In your second stitch, you're going to add 2 rubber bands, one at a time. So that's 1, and going in the same stitch, 2. Then count again, 1 with 1 rubber band, 2 with 2 rubber bands in that same stitch. Continue this pattern all the way around, and your last rubber band, you're going to end up doing a slip knot. So I'm at the C-clip. I'm going to add 1 rubber band, and I'm going to go back in and grab another rubber band and bring it through. But this time I'm going to bring it all through the other loop that's on my hook. So I have both ends of that 1 rubber band on. I'm going to grab the other end and bring it through. So I just did a slip knot. And just move the bands around so that they're nice and even. And I'm going to remove my C-clip. And there's your eye. For round 1 of the snail's tentacles, we are going to do our magic circle using the bottom part of our loom, so turn it upside down. We're going to do 6 stitches. So I am going to show you how to do 1, and then you're going to pause the video to make a second one. So taking a rubber band, you're going to wrap it around 1 peg 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're just going to go through with 1 rubber band, bring it through, and act like you're doing a slip knot. Bring it to the side. Our second rubber band, bring your 2 bands over. Our third stitch, bring the 2 rubber bands over, bring it to the side. Our fourth stitch, bring the 2 rubber bands over. Our fifth, and our 6th. And I'm going to attach a C-clip to the band that's around my hook. You can remove, and you should have 6 stitches. I'm just going to move them around so that they're nice and even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the one on your hook is your 6. For round 2 of the tentacles, we are going to use 12 rubber bands, and what we're going to do is increase on every stitch. So you're going to add 2 bands to every stitch, one at a time. So going through your first stitch, you're going to bring a rubber band through, put the band on your hook, so you have 3 loops, and just slide that band through. You're going to go through the same stitch with your second rubber band. Onto your second stitch, you're going to add 2 rubber bands, one at a time. So at the end, we're going to have 12 chains. So just complete the pattern all the way around with 2 bands in each stitch. I'm at where my C-clip is, so I'm just adding 2 rubber bands. And before I remove my C-clip to attach to the band on my hook, I'm just going to count the stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and the one on my hook is the 12th. So I'm going to remove the C-clip and just attach. Round 3 of the tentacles, we have 12 stitches, so we are going to increase it to 18 stitches. So I'll be adding 1 single band, then 2, then 1, then 2, then 1, then 2, and continue the pattern all the way around. When you get to your stitch marker, you'll be adding 2 rubber bands. So I just put in a row of 10 and then 2, so it's easy for you to copy. So going through my first chain, 1 rubber band, slide through. My second chain will have 2, so we are increasing. Then 1, then 2, going through that same chain, then 1, then 2. My last stitch, where my C-clip is, just adding 2 rubber bands. Now you should have 18 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and the one on your hook is your 18th. So just remove the C-clip and attach it to the band around your hook. For round 4 of the tentacles, what we are going to do is we are going to single stitch in the first chain and then decrease on the second and third. So just reach in. You're going to be using 12 rubber bands for this round, and you're going to end up with 12 chains. So go in the first chain with 1 rubber band. Bring it through. Now for chain 2 and chain 3, you're going to go through chain 2, bring it to the center, and go through chain 3. So you have chain 2 and chain 3 around your hook. Grab a single rubber band, and you're going to bring it through both chains. So we're making our circle smaller. Grab the rubber band and bring it through. Now we're going to start counting again. So 1 with 1 rubber band, and then chain 2 and chain 3, you're going to slide 1 rubber band through. Now with the tension here, with my finger, I'm just bringing my circle to the center of that band and bring it through. Counting again, chain 1 with 1 rubber band, then you're going to get chain 2 and chain 3 and slide the rubber band through. And with my finger, I'm just pushing the circle to the center of that band before putting it on my hook. Chain 1 with 1 rubber band, and then 2 and 3. One, and then 2 and 3, almost lost it, then 1, and then 2 and 3. So you can remove, you should have 12 stitches around your circle here. You can count those and then remove your C-clip and attach it to the band that's around your hook. Round 5, what we're going to do is decrease every stitch. So we'll end up with 6 chains at the end. So going through your first and second chain, you're going to slide a rubber band through. Your next 2 chains, you're going to grab and just grabbing 2 chains all the way around. One and 2. One and 2. And my last 2 chains, 1 and 2. So you should have 6 chains going around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the one on your hook is 6. So I'm just going to remove the C-clip, attach it to the band around my hook, and I'm just going to open this up a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of stuffing and put it inside, so I'm just going to remove the band up on a little bit on the hook here. And I'm not going to use a lot because I don't want the stuffing to show through. This is such a small piece, so you do not want to overstuff. For round 6 to round 10, what we're going to do is add 6 rubber bands going around. So I've counted my bands. This will be row 6, 7, 8, 9, and our 10th. For each round at the end, I will be leaving the C-clip on because I get distracted easily. I can recount how many C-clips, so how many rounds I went, how many times around I went. So going through, I'm going to complete these rounds with you because it's such a small piece. So going through your first chain, you're going to add just 1 rubber band to each chain going all the way around. Four, 5, and then 1 with the C-clip is my 6th. So just leaving the C-clip there, I'm going to add another one. So I've completed round 6. I'm going to just open this up a bit so I'll be able to see my stitches. So I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the one on my hook is 6th. So going into the chain right beside where the C-clip is and adding a rubber band and go around. And where the C-clip is. So I'm just going to add another C-clip. If you don't have the C-clips, you can add a slip knot with a rubber band around that band. I'm just going to open it up and starting at the chain right beside the C-clip, adding a single band to each chain. Adding my next C-clip, opening it up a bit so I can see the chains. So now we're on row 9, going around with a single band on each chain. And I missed a chain somewhere, so I'm just going to take apart this step. So I'm just taking out my bands. Just going to open it up. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. So I'm just going to do that again. My last one with a C-clip. I've added that. So now I'm just going to add another C-clip. I have 6 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the one around my hook is my 6th. So the 10th row, so I'm just going to make sure I have rows 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I'm just going to remove these C-clips. And I'm going to kind of undo this last stitch in order to do a slip knot. So I'm just going to take it out. And I'm going to bring one end through. So now I have that one band on my hook and bring it through. And I'm just going to add a tiny bit of stuffing, not too much. And if you're having trouble, just use a pen or a pencil to move it around. And because the bands get stretched around this round, just going to move them around. And you want to pause the video to make another. For round 1 of the head, we are going to start off with our magic circle, and we're going to do 5 stitches. So I'll be using 6 rubber bands. Take 1 rubber band and wrap it around 1 peg at the bottom of your loom 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. Now go in with your first stitch, bring it through, and bring your band over. Bring it to the side. Our second stitch, bring the 2 bands over. The third stitch, bring your 2 bands over. Our fourth, bring the 2 bands over, and now your 5th. I'm going to add my C-clip and remove. And now you should have 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the one on your hook is your 5th. For round 2 of the head, we are going to increase on every stitch. So we're going to use 2 bands. So I've counted 5 because we have 5 stitches, and there's an extra band, so we will finish with 10 stitches when we are done. So going in your first stitch and adding your first rubber band, pull it through. Go through that same stitch and add another rubber band. So we are going to make our circle bigger. Go through your second chain and you're going to add 2 rubber bands, one at a time. So just going back in. Our third stitch, we're going to add 2 rubber bands. Going back in. Our fourth stitch, and our last stitch, where my marker is, adding 2 rubber bands. So now you should have 10 stitches when you're done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the one on your hook is 10. I'm going to remove my C-clip and attach it to the one around my hook, to the band. For round 3 of the head, we are going to single stitch on our first stitch, then increase with 2 bands, single, increase, single, increase, so you will end up having 15 stitches. Your last stitch, where your C-clip is, you'll be adding 2 rubber bands, so at the end, we'll have 15 stitches. So going through the first with our single. Our second stitch will have 2 bands, 1, and going back in with our second. Then a single. Our next stitch will have 2. Single. And you just want to complete this pattern all the way around. If at any point I'm going too fast, just pause the video and then come back to me when you're done. So you should have 15 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Remove your C-clip and attach to the band around your hook. Round 4 of the head, we are going to do a single, single, double, so an increase. Single, single, increase. Single, single, all the way around. So I have a row of 10 and another 5 is 15 because currently I have 15 stitches. We are going to increase our chains at the end to 20. Your last stitch where your C-clip is, you'll have 2 rubber bands. So going in the first stitch with 1, our second stitch will have 1 rubber band, and our third stitch will have 2. Going back in. And you just count again. 1 single, 1 single, and 1 double, 1 increase. Single, single, and double. Single, single, and double. One, and our last stitch will have 2. So count your stitches all the way around. The one on your hook will be your 20. So just when you're done, remove your C-clip and attach it to the band around your hook. For round 5 of the head, we are going to single stitch on the first 3 chains, then the 4th, we will increase using 2 rubber bands. Then 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2. On your last stitch, where your C-clip is, you'll have 2 rubber bands. At the end of this round, we are going to have 25 stitches. So going in the first, 1, stitch 2, we'll have 1, stitch 3, we'll have 1, stitch 4, we'll have 2, same stitch. So just counting again, stitch 1, we'll have 1, stitch 2, we'll have 1, stitch 3, we'll have 1, stitch 4, we'll have 2. And then just count again, 1, 1, 1, and then 2. So every 4th stitch, you're going to have 2 rubber bands. So you should have 25 stitches going all the way around. After you've counted, you can remove your C-clip and attach it to the band around your hook. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sew these onto the top piece of our round here. And right now what I did was I took a different color rubber band and I just kind of did a slip knot just to show me the center of the head, which is where our magic circle started. I'm going to show you how to sew on these pieces, and I'm just going to put one side on one side of our magic circle, and I'm going to sew on the other half. So the magic circle is going to kind of be in the center. So I'm just going to use a black rubber band, and you can either do a slip knot to kind of secure this, or I'm just going to take my C-clip and just kind of clip it onto the stitches right beside it so it's secure. Now I'm just going to put my C-clip towards the top here, and I'm just going to go in right beside the center here from one end to the other and kind of do a slip knot. So I'm just going to pull a band through. And I think I'm going to go through the other hole here right beside it. Now you don't have to do my way. If you can sew on the pieces, that's great. Sorry, it's not working out for me here. So here's my center. So I'm going to take my first piece and kind of attach it so that this band right now is in the center part of the antenna or tentacles. So I'm going to go through the bottom, and what I'm going to do is you're going to see kind of like your first section right here. You don't want to be going through those bands. You want to go closer to the end, because then it will just end up being right beside the center. So I'm going to kind of go right below here. And that's where I'm going to start, and I'm going to grab my slip knot and just bring it through. And now all I'm going to do is just go around. So I'm just going to go through the hole right above it and grab one of the stitches. And I'm going to take a single rubber band, support with your finger, and bring it through. So what's happening is you're just bringing this band that was around your hook and you're bringing it through. Now I'm going to go right beside where this band is, just on a different side of the rubber band, and grab the band and bring it through. So now I have, well, I should have had the two bands around my hook, and I'm just going to bring it through. Now going beside there, and I'm going to grab another stitch. Just opening it up, and I'm just going to grab another stitch and bringing a band through again. So support, and I'm just going around in a circle, bringing it through. And I'm just going to go right beside that band in another little section of the circle and bringing the band through. Bring it underneath. And I'm just going to bring it underneath. I'm going to go right beside it and grabbing another stitch, grabbing a band, and bringing it through. And you can just slide it underneath, go right beside through another stitch, and grab that band and bring it underneath. So I'm just going to go through one more time just so it's not leaning over, and bring it through. And going right beside in a different spot and bringing the band through. And you just want to make sure that it's standing up, and then you can just kind of go through these loops here, just through one, and grab another band and do a slip knot. So you're just going to go through and through, grab the end, and then tie it off. And it should stay up. I'm going to show you how to do the other one. So grabbing your next one, if there's at any point in time that you can't attach these the way I'm attaching it, you could do slip knots on each stitch, just bringing it through. So again, I'm just going to start about here. I'm going to go through and grab the slip knot. And maybe I'm just going to move it up a bit, maybe through this hole. I'm just going to go through the hole right beside it and grabbing stitch, grabbing a band and bringing it through. I'm going to go through the stitch right beside it and just grab that band. Going through the hole right beside it and grabbing another stitch. Going right beside it. You'll notice, sorry, that my band is going over the one that was already in the bottom. I'm just sliding it through. I'm going to go through the stitch right beside it just to grab my rubber band here and bring it through. And you just want to make sure that you're on a good spot. I'm just going to bring that band through again because I don't like where I went. I'm just going to come out of this hole. And you just want to make sure that you like where they're going. And that's okay. So I'm just going to go through one of these stitches here and do a slip knot. And there we go. For rounds 6 to 11, we are going to single stitch in each chain all the way around. So I am going to be leaving my C-clips on, again, just to count my rounds in case I get distracted. So you'll notice that my row 6 C-clip is already on my hook. So you can pause the video and finish to round 11 and then come back. I'm just going to do round 6 with you and then pause the video. So going in my first stitch, not where my band is being pulled, and just adding a rubber band to each stitch. So each round you will finish with 25 chains. So each of my bundles here has 25 bands that I've already pre-counted. So I've completed round 6. I'm going to add a C-clip for round 7. Now you can pause the video, come back to me when you've completed round 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So right now I've completed rounds 6 to 11. So you can see I have 6, row 7 was done, row 8, row 9, row 10, and row 11. So I'm going to be starting on row 12, so I'm just going to attach my C-clip to the band around my hook. For row 12, we are going to decrease, so we will end up with 20 chains. So we are going to single stitch on the first 3 chains, and then we are going to stitch 4 and 5 together. And you're going to repeat that all the way around. So single, 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 stitch 4 and 5 together. So starting at my first chain, not where the band is being pulled, and you're going to add 1 rubber band, 1, second chain has 1, third chain, 1 band, and then stitch 4 and 5 together. So go through 4, bring it back to the center, and stitch 5. So now you have stitch 4 and 5 on your hook. Take a single rubber band, and you want to pull, I'm going to use my pointer finger so you can see, pull it through the stitch 5, and then you want to pull it through stitch 4. With my finger, I'm just going to bring the head bands to the middle of that rubber band so the tension is even, putting the band on my hook and sliding it through. Now count again, stitch 1 with 1 band, stitch 2, 1 band, stitch 3, 1 band, and decrease, stitch 4 and stitch 5 together. Bring it through, and I'm just moving the body right to the center of that band. Grab the band and bring it through. And just repeat this pattern all the way around. Stitch 1, 1 band. Stitch 2, 1 band. Stitch 3, 1 band. Stitch 4 and stitch 5 together. And repeat. Your last 2 stitches should be stitched together. 4, and the one with your C-clip is your 5th stitch, and you're stitching together. So now you should have 20 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. The one on your hook is 20. Remove your C-clip and add it to the band around your hook. For row 13, we are going to use 15 bands. So at the end of our round, we will have 15 stitches. To do this round, what we're going to do is a single stitch, stitch 3 and 4 together. Single, single, 3 and 4 together, all the way around. So going through your first stitch, not where it's being pulled, you're going to add a single band to the first chain, single band to the second chain. Then you want to stitch 3 and stitch 4 together and bring a band through. Single, single, 3 and 4 together. Single, single, 3 and 4 together. Single, single, 3 and 4 together. And just continue. I have to repeat that one. So you should have 15 stitches when you've completed the round 13. Then you can remove your C-clip and add it to the band. What I'm going to do now is show you how to do the eye. So I'm just going to remove this off my hook and I'm going to secure it in place. Again, if you're not using C-clips, you can use a rubber band to secure it by doing a slip knot. So now we're going to attach the eye, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 7 rubber bands, 4, 6, and 7, and I'm going to do slip knots on a couple of the stitches. So I'm just going to skip the first one and go through the second and just do a slip knot, bringing a band through the chain, grabbing both ends, and sliding over. I'm going to skip a chain and do a slip knot through the chain. And I'm just going to go around doing that, bringing a band through, grabbing both ends, and slide it through. There's many different ways that you can attach this eye, so whatever you feel comfortable, that's what you can do. You can do your way. And I'm just going to add one right beside our original slip knot. So to show you, this is what I'm going to do. Here's your magic circle. I'm just going to count 5 of these holes down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm attaching it around the 5th hole. So I'm going to put the C-clip towards the back here. fold it in half so we center it, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to come out of here. So I'm going to put my hook through and come out. 4 and 5. I'm going to grab one of the slip knots and bring it through. And I'm just going to let go. Now when you're attaching the eye, I'm just going to bring the slip knots through the holes that are going around, but you don't want to make your eye flat. We want them puffy. So I'm going to make sure that when I'm grabbing a slip knot, I'm going right behind the eye. So not right at the edge here. So going through another hole, grabbing a slip knot and bringing it through. Going through and grabbing another one. And just go around. And after you bring them all through, you can just make sure that it's centered. So I'm okay where it is. So I'm just going to go to the back and I'm just going to grab these slip knots. I'm just going to fix this one. So just grabbing one slip knot, grabbing the next one, bringing it through, sliding it through. So you're just making a chain. And now if you kind of just do a slip knot right here, it's going to be very loose. So what I'm going to do is just go through a couple of the chains, kind of making it smaller. And I'm going to bring a single band through just to do a slip knot. Bringing all these ends over, grabbing the other end of that band and just bring it through. And my eye is on. And I missed one of the stitches, so I'm actually just going to bring it through and grab another band. I'm not going to take it apart to redo it. And there we go. I'm just going to remove my C-clip now off the chain and keep it around the loop. So to go back, we have 15 stitches going around around the round. For rows 14 through 27, we are going to single stitch on each chain. So we are going to add a rubber band to each chain. So you can see I have rows 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27. I'm going to do the first round with you, 14, and you'll notice that I have the C-clip around. So just adding a rubber band to each chain all the way around. And I'm going to leave the C-clip there in case I lose count of how many rounds I've completed. So I'm going to go to my next pile, grab my C-clip, attach it, and continue with round 15. Each pile has 15 bands. Come back to me when you're complete round 27. Now that you've finished rows 14 to 27, I just went ahead and removed my C-clips because that's how I counted my rows. And I'm just going to add a C-clip now to the band that's around my hook. I'm going to remove this and kind of secure it because we're going to use stuffing now. And I'm just going to secure it by attaching it to one of the loops right beside it. So now you're just going to use some stuffing and you're going to fill the head. If you need to, you can use a pencil to just kind of push it in. I need a little bit more. And we're not going to fill it all the way to the end. We're just going to fill it to about here for the neck, and the rest of it we're just going to leave flat. You don't want to overstuff because you don't want the stuffing to show through the bands. And if you need to at the end, before we close it off, you can add a little bit more. But I think maybe I'm just going to fill the neck part inside halfway. So the rest will end up being without stuffing. For row 28, we're going to start. I'm just going to remove the C-clip around that chain. And put it back on my hook. And what we're going to do is we're going to single stitch the first chain, then decrease. So chains 2 and chains 3 we're going to stitch together. And then we are going to single stitch 2 and 3 together, single stitch 2 and 3 together. So we're going to use 10 bands around this round, and we are going to finish with 10 chains. So you're going to take your first band and go through your first chain, then chains 2 and chains 3 we're going to stitch together. Single stitch, chains 2 and chains 3 together. Single, stitch the next two together. Single, two, and three together. You're going to complete this pattern all the way around. And the last two, stitch together. And remove your C-clip and attach it to the band around your hook. For rounds 29 to 33, we are going to single stitch in every stitch. So we're going to use 10 bands for each round. This will be 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. So I'm going to do the first round with you, so my C-clip is already there, and I'm just going to put a band through every stitch. So pause the video and come back to me when you're done. So now we're going to do rounds 34 and 35 together. So I have completed 29 to 33, and I've added another C-clip to do round 34. So I'm just going to put this back on my hook, and what we're going to do is we're going to decrease every stitch. So every 2 stitches we're going to grab. So here's my first chain, chains 1 and chains 2 together. So we are going to finish the round and we're going to have 5 chains. So my next 2 stitch together. Next 2 together. My next 2 together. I'm going to remove the C-clip. I'm not going to use it anymore. And now I'm just going to grab 2 stitches, just any 2 here. So it will be like the first and the last. And I'm just going to do a slip knot. So I'm just going to go through all of the bands that are around my hook and do a slip knot. And the body of the snail is done. You can go ahead and just go through these bands here, grab that slip knot and just bring it through. So round 1 of the shell for our snail, we are going to do 5 stitches on our magic circle. So I'm going to use 6 bands for this round. Our first band, we're just going to use the bottom portion of our loom. So just turn your loom upside down and you're going to wrap it around 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. Now taking your hook and a single band, you're just going to go right through, grab that band and bring it through as if you're doing a slip knot. You're going to bring the band over and bring it to the side. Now we're going to go back in and grab a second band and bring it through. Bring these two bands over the band that's at the tip and bring it to the side. We're going for our third band, so our third stitch, bringing it through, grabbing the band and bringing it up. Grab these two bands and bring it over and bring it to the side. Going for our fourth stitch, bring it through and bring the two bands over. And our last stitch, our fifth stitch. Bringing it through. Now I'm going to attach a C-clip for my stitch marker and remove it off the loom. So now if you're going to count the stitches, you should have 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the one on your hook is your 5th. Round 2 of our shell, what we're going to do is increase every stitch. So every stitch will have 2 bands. So I'll be using 10 bands for this round, and you're going to finish with 10 stitches. So going in your first stitch, you're going to grab a rubber band and bring it through. And put the other end on your hook, and now you have the 3 loops. Just slide it through. Go back in that same stitch and add your second band. And bring it through. So we're going through our next stitch, our second stitch, and again we'll be adding 2 rubber bands. Our third stitch, 2 rubber bands, and continue this pattern all the way around. Our last stitch will have 2 rubber bands. If at any point in time through this video that I'm going too fast, pause the video, finish your round, and come back to me. So now that you've finished round 2, you should have 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the one on your hook is your 10th. I'm going to remove my stitch marker and attach it to the band around my hook. For round 3 of our shell, we are going to single stitch on our first stitch. What I mean is adding 1 rubber band. Our second stitch we're going to increase, so we're going to use 2 rubber bands. Then 1 rubber band, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way around. When you get to your C-clip at the end, you'll be using 2 rubber bands. So going in the first stitch, add 1 rubber band. Stitch 2, we're going to increase to 2 rubber bands. So 1, go back in that same stitch and add your second rubber band. When you complete this round, you will have 15 stitches. So start again. 1 will have 1 band. Then your next stitch has 2 rubber bands. Then 1, and then 2. One, then 1, and 2. So when you complete your round 3, you should have 15 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and the one on your hook is 15. I'm going to remove my C-clip and attach it to the band that's around my hook. For round 4, we are going to increase, so at the end of our round, we're going to have 20 stitches. What you're going to do is on stitch 1, you're going to put 1 band. Stitch 2, 1 band. Stitch 3, we're going to increase with 2 bands, and then you're going to repeat. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. So at the end of the round, where your C-clip is, or your stitch marker, you're going to add 2 rubber bands. So our first stitch, 1. Oops. This is easier when I use my middle finger to support the band. I'm just afraid you can't see. So 1. Stitch 2, we'll have 1. Stitch 3, you're going to add 2 rubber bands. Then repeat. Count again. Stitch 1 is 1. Stitch 2 has 1. Stitch 3 has 2. And just continue with the same pattern all the way around. So at the end of round 4, you should have 20 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. The one on your hook is 20. So I'm just going to remove my C-clip and attach it to the band around my hook. For round 5 of our shell, we are going to increase this round to 25 stitches. So at the end, you will be counting 25 stitches. What we're going to do is on our first stitch, you are going to do 1 rubber band. Second stitch will have 1. Third stitch will have 1. And our fourth stitch, we're going to increase with 2. We're going to continue that all the way around. 1, 1, 1, 2. 1, 1, 1, 2. 1, 1, 1, 2. On your last stitch, where your stitch marker is, you're going to end up with 2 rubber bands. So going in your first stitch, if you give it a pull, you're not going in here. You're going in your first stitch with 1 rubber band. Our next stitch will have 1. Our third stitch will have 1. Our fourth stitch will have 2, 1 at a time. And then you're just going to count again, 1 with 1 band. Your second stitch, 1 band. your third stitch, 1 band. And then your fourth stitch will have 2 bands. And just repeat this pattern all the way around. I'm at my last stitch where my C-clip is, and I'm adding 2 rubber bands. Now count your stitches. You should have 25 stitches. Your 25th is on your hook. After you finish counting, you can remove your stitch marker and attach it to your band. For rounds 6 to round 12, we are just going to single stitch on every stitch. So I have in piles here 25 bands. For round 6, I have my C-clip here, and I'll be leaving C-clips or adding C-clips in case I get distracted and I forget which round I'm at. So I can end up counting how many C-clips I have. It's just an easier way for me. So just going in each stitch with 1 rubber band. At the end of each round, you should still have 25 stitches. So now you want to make sure, just count your stitches. So you have 25 stitches. I'm going to leave this C-clip here and I'm going to add on my next C-clip so I can end up counting just to make sure I've completed the rounds. You don't have to do that. You can use a pencil and mark down which row you're at. So just pause the video and continue with row 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and then come back. So now I've finished rows 6 through 12. So this would be 6. I'm just going to remove, these were my rows. 7, row 8, row 9, row 10, row 11, and row 12. And this is what your ball should look like, your back. So I'm just going to use one of these seed clips, attach it to the band that's around my hook, and I'm going to start row 13. For round 13, what we're going to do is we're going to start to decrease. So right now, we currently have 25 stitches, so we're going to bring it down to 20 stitches. We are going to, the pattern is single, 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 stitch 4 and 5 together. So stitch 1 will have one band, stitch 2 will have one band, stitch 3 will have one band, and you're going to stitch 4 and 5 together and repeat all the way around. So I've just organized 20 bands in sets of 4. So I'm going to go through my first stitch with one band, second stitch, one band, third stitch, one band. Now you're going to take stitch 4 and bring it in and go through stitch 5. Bring a band through both of those stitches. I like to, with my finger, push the shell part to the center of that band so it's to release some of the tension here. I'm going to put the band on and slide it through. And just repeat this pattern all the way around. 1 with one band, 2 with one band, 3, one band, stitch 4 and stitch 5 together. And just continue. Stitch 4 and stitch 5, my last 2 stitches. So before you remove your stitch counter, make sure that you have 20 stitches. I'm going to remove my C-clip and add it to the band that's around my hook. For round 14, we are going to decrease to 15 stitches. So we are going to do a single stitch, one band, decrease. So you're going to take 3 and 4 together. So it's 1, 1, 3 and 4 together. 1, 1, 3 and 4 together. So going in your first stitch, you're going to grab one band and bring it through. Second stitch, one band. So for this round, you're going to use 15 rubber bands. Stitch 3 and stitch 4 together. One, 1, 3 and 4 together. One, 1, 3 and 4 together. Just continue this pattern all the way around. So now you should have 15 stitches. I'm just going to release some of its tension so it's nice and even. Count your stitches before you remove your marker, and then you can add it to the band that's around your hook. I'm just going to push this up on my hook a bit, and now I'm going to use some stuffing to fill it. Again, make sure that you don't use a lot. You don't want it coming through. I think maybe that's a little bit too much. For round 15, we are going to decrease this round, so we'll end up with 10 stitches. So I'm going to use 10 rubber bands. On our first stitch, we're going to add 1 rubber band, and then we're going to stitch 2 and 3 together. So 1, and then 2 and 3 together, and repeat the pattern all the way around. So on our first stitch, 1 rubber band. Stitch 2 and stitch 3 together. One, stitch 2 and stitch 3 together. And repeat this all the way around. So now you should have 10 stitches. You can remove your C-clip and attach it to the band around your hook. I'm thinking I'm just going to remove a little bit of the stuffing. This is our row 16, and we are just going to close it off here. We're going to decrease right now, so we have we're going to decrease till we have 5 stitches. So you're going to grab stitch 1 and stitch 2 together. So you're going to grab every 2 stitches and put them together. Put on your hook and go for your next 2 stitches. Stitch 1 and stitch 2 together. Your next 2. Stitch 1 and stitch 2 together. Stitch 1 and stitch 2 together. And then stitch 1 and stitch 2 together. I'm going to remove this C-clip, and what I'm going to do is just grab 2 of the stitches on either side here. So here's 1 stitch, and then going through a neck stitch. It doesn't matter which one, and I'm just going to pull a band through all of these loops that are on my hook and do a slip knot. And I'm just going to bring it through. And our shell is done. So now we're going to attach our shell to the back. Where your slip knot is where we're going to be starting. And I'm just going to sew this on with rubber bands. If you find this way difficult, you can just do slip knots. So just kind of take your shell, adjust it, and this is where we're going to be starting. So somewhere in the head area here. So I'm just going to go through where our slip knot was, just through 2 of the bands in the center, and then I'm going to go through the center and the head here, just making sure that it's in the center. And I'm going to grab a rubber band and I'm going to bring it through and put on my hook and slide through. Now we're going to go right below in the body area, just grabbing 2 of the bands, so somewhere in the center, and I'm going to grab 2 rubber bands on the shell area, and I'm going to bring a rubber band through the shell, through the body, and put on my hook. So you have 3 rubber bands. And I'm going to slide it through. I'm going to go right below on the body and the shell. By all means, if you have an easier way of doing this, you can do that. Go through the shell, the body, put on your hook, and slide through. I'm going to go through the body, through the shell, and slide through and put on your hook. Slide through. We're going to go on the body, through the shell, and take a band and slide through. We're going to go on the body, through the shell, and slide through. And I lost it. Again. And I'm going to go again. Gotta grab the shell. And let's see if I have to grab one more time. I'm just going to go right below and do it one more time. And I'm going to do a slip knot. So I'm going to go through that band that's on my hook and tie it off. then you can just hide this slip knot. Now we're going to do his mouth, and all I'm going to do is do a slip knot with 3 rubber bands. So I'm just going to bring it through and tie it. I'm going to do one more. And I'm just going to pull it through. So I'm just going to kind of determine where the face is. And I'm going to go through just a couple of the bands here. And I'm going to bring one end out the other. And grab both ends. And I'm just going to use a C-clip. And I'm just going to tighten this band here by wrapping it around the C-clip. I'm going to try to do 3 times. Just wrapping it around, bringing it in. And I'm going to do that to the other side. And I'm just going to pull it through to the other side. So I'm going to hide the C-clip towards the back. For just the purpose of a picture, I am using a piece of wire, and I'm going to it already has a piece of wire inside, so just make sure, ask an adult to help you. If you don't have one, it's fine just to leave it like that, and you can kind of hold a picture just to take it like that. It's really cute like that. But if you do have the wire and you just want it to pose for you, you can just take the wire and go through the bottom here and come out go through towards the head, and I'm just taking this and just putting it right into the shell just to have it stand up and pose. I do hope you enjoyed Looming with Cheryl. Please subscribe down below. I have a lot more designs to load, and I will see you next time with another. Bye for now.